Stay silent, sir, because what you're about to learn will change your life forever.
The billionaire came home early, and the maid whispered, "Stay silent. The reason will leave you stunned." The billionaire came home early. Richard Coleman had built an empire from nothing. At 38, he owned half the skyline in Boston, glass towers, tech startups, luxury hotels, and a sprawling estate on Beacon Hill that looked more like a museum than a home. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, walls lined with art worth more than most people's lifetimes. He rarely came home before midnight. Board meetings bled into private jets, deals into dinners with politicians. His wife, Elena, understood. Or so he thought. That Thursday in late autumn, everything changed. Richard had closed a $3 billion merger 2 days early. No fanfare, no press release yet. He wanted to surprise her. Elena had been distant lately, texts unanswered, smiles forced during their weekly video calls when he was overseas. He blamed jet lag, stress, the usual excuses. Today he carried a bouquet of white lilies, her favorite, and a small velvet box containing the emerald earrings she'd admired in Paris last spring. He dismissed the driver at the gate, entered through the side entrance to avoid triggering the full security lights. The house was quiet, too quiet. No classical music drifting from the living room, no clink of Elena's wine glass, just the faint hum of the climate control. He stepped into the foyer, shoes silent on marble. Then a hand clamped over his mouth. Richard's heart slammed against his ribs. He spun, ready to fight, but the grip was small, desperate, not aggressive. A young woman in the black and white uniform of the household staff stared up at him with wide, terrified eyes. It was Lila, the new maid. She'd started 6 months ago. Quiet, efficient, always keeping her head down. Richard barely knew her name. She was one of 7 staff members who kept the mansion running like clockwork. She pressed a finger to her lips, shaking her head frantically. "Stay silent," she whispered, so low it was almost breath. "Please, trust me." Just for 1 minute. Richard froze. Her hand trembled against his chest as she pulled him sideways into the narrow alcove behind the grand staircase, the one used for linens and storage. The door clicked shut, leaving only a thin crack of light. Through it he could see the hallway leading to the master wing. Voices. Elena's voice first, soft, intimate, the way she used to speak to him. "The lawyer says the policy pays double if it's ruled an accident. We just need to be careful. No traces." A man's laugh, deep, familiar. Victor, Richard's younger brother, the one who joined the company 5 years ago, the one Richard had mentored, trusted with board seats and access codes. The one who always joked about being the spare heir. Victor stepped into view first, arm around Elena's waist. She leaned into him, casual, comfortable. Lovers. Richard's stomach twisted. He wanted to burst out, demand answers, but Lila's grip tightened on his sleeve. She shook her head again, eyes pleading. "Wait," she mouthed. Victor kissed Elena's temple. "He's coming back tomorrow night, right? Flight lands at 8? "Yes," Elena said. "But I've already spoken to the contractor. The carbon monoxide detector in the bedroom wing. It's been malfunctioning. A slow leak overnight while he's asleep. He'll never wake up. Police will call it a tragic fault in the system, faulty installation. No one suspects the grieving widow and brother." Victor's hand slid lower. "And the company? The shares?" "Everything transfers to me as primary beneficiary. You'll get your cut as COO. We split it clean. No messy divorce, no prenup fights. He's gone, and we walk away with billions." Richard felt the lilies crush in his fist. Petals fell silently to the floor. His mind raced. How long? How deep did this go? The late nights Elena claimed were yoga retreats. Victor's sudden interest in home security upgrades. Lila's breath was ragged beside him. She was crying silently, tears streaking her cheeks. "Why are you doing this?" Richard whispered, barely audible. Lila swallowed. "I overheard them 3 weeks ago. I wanted to tell you, but who would believe the maid? They threatened me. If I spoke, they'd say I stole jewelry, ruin my family back home. My brother's in medical school, they know his name. I stayed quiet to watch, to find proof. I recorded them on my phone last week, Audio only, but it's clear. Enough for police. She slipped her phone into his hand. The recording was cued. Richard pressed play. Elena's voice filled the tiny space. Poison would be cleaner, but too obvious. Carbon monoxide is perfect. Undetectable unless they test specifically. And why would they? Rich man dies in his sleep. Heart failure, they say. Happens all the time. Victor's chuckle. You're colder than I thought, love. I learned from the best, Elena replied. The recording ended. Richard's vision blurred with rage. He reached for the door handle. Lila grabbed his wrist. Not yet. They're armed. Victor has a gun in the study drawer. He showed it to her. Said it's for protection. If you go out there now, they'll kill you and claim intruder. Wait for security shift change. I disabled the cameras in this wing 10 minutes ago. They think it's a glitch. You have 20 minutes before the system reboots. Richard stared at her. This woman, barely 25, earning minimum wage plus tips, had risked everything. Not for money, not for favor, just because it was right. Why risk it? He asked. Lila looked down. My father died the same way. Faulty heater. I was 12. Police called it accident. Years later, I found out my stepmother had tampered with it for insurance. I couldn't watch it happen again. Not to anyone. Richard's throat tightened. He looked through the crack again. Elena and Victor had moved toward the stairs, laughing softly. He felt something shift inside him, not just anger, but clarity. All those years building walls of wealth, he'd forgotten what real loyalty looked like. He handed Lila back her phone. Send that recording to my private email. Then to Detective Harlan at Boston PD. He owes me a favor. Do it now. Lila nodded, fingers flying across the screen. As the file sent, Richard straightened. When the cameras reboot, they'll see everything again. But by then, police will be on their way. He stepped out first, shielding her behind him. Elena saw him first, her face drained of color. Richard, you're early. Victor reached instinctively toward his jacket. Richard raised a hand. Don't. Security alarms blared suddenly. Lila had triggered the silent panic code via the staff app. Victor lunged, but Richard was faster. Years of boxing and private gyms paid off. One punch sent Victor sprawling. Elena screamed, backing away. Police arrived within 8 minutes. Sirens lit the mansion red and blue. In the chaos, Richard found Lila in the hallway, clutching her apron like a lifeline. You saved my life, he said quietly. She shook her head. I just didn't stay silent. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You won't have to anymore. Weeks later, the headlines were brutal. Billionaire's wife and brother arrested in murder-for-hire plot. Elena and Victor faced charges of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and more. The company stock dipped briefly, then soared. Investors admired Richard's calm handling. Richard quietly paid for Lila's brother's medical school in full. He offered her a position, not as maid, but as head of household security and personal assistant. She accepted, but only after insisting on night classes in criminology. One evening, months later, they stood on the terrace overlooking the city lights. You could have walked away, Richard said. Kept your job, your safety. Lila smiled faintly. And let them win? No. Silence protects no one. He looked at her, really looked. Not as staff, but as the woman who'd seen through the glamour to the rot beneath. Stay, he said, not as an order, as a question. She met his eyes. Only if it's honest. Richard nodded. From now on, everything is. In the quiet mansion, for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. And somewhere in the city below, two people who thought wealth could buy silence learned the hardest lesson. Some whispers are louder than screams. The end